welcome to my channel. Today's topic, we're going to talk about what's in my first aid / emergency kit for my reptiles. Today I'm joined by Poops, my first ball python. So he's just going to chill out with us while we describe what's in my first aid kit here. So it's really good to have a first aid kit just for any pet you have. I think I'm going to do videos with each type of pet that I have and what first aid stuff is in it. It's good to have in case, you know, there's a weather emergency, or if you have a pandemic per se and need a bunch of stuff because everyone's kind of hoarding things. It's always good for that. And then of course things happen. Sometimes an animal falls off its log. You want to be able to take care of any bumps and scratches. Obviously my biggest advice is if you're concerned about your pet, take it to a vet. Don't just try to treat it, but like for tiny little scratches and tiny, little tiny ailments, you can treat on your own for the most part. But again, go see a vet if you're concerned, or if you just want to get it checked out. That is my number one thing. I've taken lots of things to the vet just over small stuff. So my first aid kit is really just a shelf in my reptile room. Obviously my first advice for any first aid is prevention instead of, after the fact treatment. So make sure you're treating your foods with calcium and vitamins to prevent metabolic bone disease and other things like that. Make sure your logs are the appropriate size and are the appropriate length away from your heat bulbs. Do stuff like that. So a lot of things in my first aid kit are just duplicates of what's in the stuff I use all the time. That you need to have in your first aid kit as an extra is obviously a calcium, a calcium powder. So I have calcium with and without D3. Certain animals call for different ones. Certain situations you maybe don't want the D3, so I always have a little bit of both there, so just an extra for those. I also have an extra bit of Reptile Vitamins, so you should also sprinkle this every once in a while on your food, but always have extras. And then I always have an extra bottle of Reptisafe. I pretty much stockpile this stuff all the time. Also keeping electrolytes handy. Some of my animals need electrolytes all the time, so I kind of use this all the time, but you should keep this nearby in your first aid kit. Just because, sometimes animals get dehydrated. You need to kind of boost their salt levels. Every once in a while, good electrolyte soak will do wonders for reptiles. They actually soak it in through their cloaca as well, so a bath would be good, or they can drink it, so keeping that handy. So one thing I highly recommend having in your kit is having an actual guide for your animals, so if someone else is taking care of your animals, they can just go to it and reference it. This is one of my early prototype ones. You have to kind of update them all the time if you have a bigger collection, but you just have, each page dedicated to an animal, what they eat, how you can clean their tank, what tank they're in, stuff like that. And then inside I also have a list of my vets that they go to and which one goes where. And then I also have my contact information, my husband's contact information, even my dad's information's in here, just in case something happens to the animals and they need to get to that. We have every information you can in here. So this one's just like a guide to all my animals, and it's a nice little binder. I have a table of contents in the front, so if you do something like fancy like this, or you can do something, just like a quick little type up, just so you have that reference for people that take care of your animals. Some tools that I use all the time, but you should always keep handy. I have a heat gun. That way you can accurately see how hot the environment is for your reptile. So you want to check the basking area, the cold end of the tank. And then same goes for a hygrometer, so making sure that the water humidity levels are good for your animals, so I keep that nearby. And then this isn't made for reptiles. It's a thermometer for food, but I actually use this to go into the soil. I also keep various gloves handy. So again, this is not in my first aid kits near it. It's with the stuff I use all the time. You never know who's going to be feisty, so I keep different types of gloves. I have different suede and leather ones for, lizards I'm concerned will actually take my hand off. So tegus, iguanas, banana monitors, stuff like that. They can actually really do some damage to you. So if they're ever being super feisty and you have to go in there, I recommend having your gloves nearby. Scissors. So scissors is something that's super important. You never know what you're going to have to cut. Maybe your animal gets caught in a vine. You're going to have to cut that vine. Maybe you need to get into a certain package to treat your animal. So an extra pair of scissors in your reptile room is a wondrous tool. A toothbrush. So this is good for cleaning off debris. on an animal. Obviously, you can disinfect it to make sure that, you know, if you're using on different animals for some reason, it's clean between each animal. I mean, you really shouldn't clean animals right after the other. This is really just in my emergency kit. Sometimes a turtle might have problems with the shell that you need to scrub something off. Obviously, you want to be gentle because that is part of their backs. But again, sometimes things get on there and you just scrape it off. I've also used this with stuck sheds. You just gently, you know, rub over the shed when they're in the water, because I don't like to peel off because that can actually hurt certain animals by just peeling their shed off. So let's say Boop's got a little patch here and we're in a bath. I can just gently rub him with it to get it off. So keep that in your emergency kit. So another tool that I recommend when it gets cold outside and you're worried about your power going out, or even in the summer if it's not, you know, terribly hot, is to having hand and feet warmers available. They do get really hot, so you do have to wrap them in some towels, you know, or some soft things. You can place it in there as long as you think that they're not going to burrow. I put it on the next to the tanks. I put it under tanks. I put it over tanks in the event of a power outage. We actually bought a generator because we were worried about it, and we're in an area that it gets really cold. So we like to have things that will keep my animals warm. Luckily, we haven't had to use the generator or these in a while, but it's always good to have while you're there. I highly recommend generators too if you have a big collection. We're just hooking ours up literally to like the garage and basement. We're not going to generate anything else in our house if that were to happen. And then we also have blankets and towels and different, you know, critter keepers and containers for emergency situations that you got to run, take them to the vet, or need to make their cage warmer. So in my emergency kit, I also keep pretty much non-perishable foods just in case I can't get live foods for whatever reason. I remember during the pandemic when it first started, crickets were a hot commodity, so I had to have a lot of freeze-dried or, you know, can of crickets and mealworms just in case. I luckily didn't have to use them, but I had them, and it gave me peace of mind. If I couldn't find something for my animals, I had something. So, you know, keeping a little thing of this. I have a huge one. A pro tip is that you can actually buy the mealworms from the wild bird section. It's the same thing as, you know, the ones that are made by Fluckers and stuff like that. Same food, just bigger bag, might be a little bit cheaper, so check that out. So yeah, I always keep freeze-dried stuff just in case. With the freeze-dried stuff, don't just give it to your animals like this. You need to actually rehydrate them. And then I keep extras of things I do use, so if I can't get fresh fruits and veggies for some reason, I have lots of different pellets and like crunchy food for my reptiles. So tourist food, bearded dragon food, iguana food, you name it, I have extras of that. Same goes for powders. So, you know, certain lizards you need to have a nice balanced diet of, you know, actual foods, eggs and stuff like that. But Rapashi and some other brands make powder diets for literally many things. So blue tongue skinks, monitors, tegus. You just mix it together and makes a gel. So having a bunch of this on hand if you can't get real food is super important. So we have that. And then as an example, you know, having the can of whatever's, you know, available in your stockpile just in case. So I have, this is just an example, can of snails, but I have can of grasshoppers, crickets, mealworms, etc. just in case. Hopefully I never have to use them. With these you kind of have to check their dates. They eventually go bad, it takes a while, but there you go. Sometimes animals go off feeding and it's to a point where you're worried about them, they might be losing weight. Obviously go see it, that's number one thing. But you can also treat them yourself using appetite stimulants. So I have a few examples here. So Critical Care Carnivore for carnivores, Critical Care Herbivore for herbivores, and then good old Reptiboost. So these are, you want to mix them with water and use a syringe for it. Another thing you should keep on hand is syringes. So in order to get maybe extra water into their mouths or to get the appetite stimulants, various things to get them to eat or take medicine, these are always great to have on hand. All you have to do is wash them out if you go to a vet and already have medicine. So some other random on-hand things I have in case of emergencies. I have some turtle fix for shells. I've only had to use it once just because their shell was kind of weird. So that's good for bacterial infections, weirdness on the shells. It's basically tea tree oil, but so this can be good in a quick fix. If you see anything wrong with your turtle shell, go to a vet. And then I've really not had to use this, but it's also turtle eye drops. So turtles need vitamin A. I mean, most things need vitamin A, but turtles are especially susceptible to deficiencies in that. You should provide that in your food, but if you're worried about it, or if they start showing lethargy and like their eyes are kind of swollen, these drops are actually going to help, you know, get vitamin A back into their system. So this is one I got from a vet, but I think you could probably find them online. Chewy tends to have the weird medicines if you need to buy them, so check Chewy out. But this one, so silver sulfadiazine cream. This is good for treating wounds. I had used on a turtle that for some reason scratched its arm on a rock. So what you do with this is you don't keep it wet. You actually have to dry dock your turtle if you're doing a turtle. But yeah, so as long as you let this dry on them, and then you can rinse it off later, the crusty stuff that forms on it, this is a good healing tool. This is another thing you can get from Chewy. It's called Terramycin. It's really good for eye infections. Sometimes those reptiles from a reptile show aren't the healthiest, and a lot of times they have eye problems. But a little bit of this just across their eyelid, where it soaks in, actually cures a lot of the basic stuff. And again, see your vet. If you are concerned or it looks bad, or if you just anything, just go see a vet. This is really just in case of emergencies, or if it's just something super minor. But Terramycin, good for eyes, you get at Chewy. So for first aid, so if they get a scratch or anything, you want to make sure it's treated. So I recommend having gauze and self-adhesive bandages. You can get them at pretty much any pet store or your local drugstore. The ones that just stick to itself, I recommend having those. I also keep cotton balls in my kit just to like mop up any blood or anything. So first you want to clean the wound with water, and then you can apply certain products to it. So not every product is recommended for reptiles that we have in our own cabinets. So for example, Neosporin with pain reliever is terrible for reptiles. It will literally kill them. They get a certain disorder from it, so never use that. You could get away with using Neosporin without the pain reliever, but I just avoid it totally. Bactine is a safe thing to use on animals to keep their wounds clean. Betadine is a good antiseptic, so another wound cleaner. And then Curacyan is another one. So I just kind of have a little bit of everything in case, I need to clean a wound. Luckily, I haven't really used any of these. I use this one on my tegu that has toes still falling off from its previous home. But other than that, I haven't really used these a lot. So it's just to have on hand, just in case. How you give lizards medicine is a tip I have for you. So you never want to pry their mouth open with the syringe if you have to give them medicine or an appetite stimulant. You actually want them to kind of open their mouths on their own. So what you want to do, come on buddy. You want if you tap the side of their mouth or you rub the side of their lip, they're going to open their mouth, and then, hold on, let me try again. You go, whoop, and then they'll take their medicine. So you don't want to force it down their throat. You just want to get it into their mouth so they eat it themselves. You don't want to aspirate them at all. So again, you just want to, whoop, and they open, and you can get it inside. Another one, so a lot of my bearded dragons sometimes are a bit feisty. I don't know, I just got a bunch of, feisty bearded dragons. What I do for them if they need anything is I drip it onto their nose so it starts going like that, and then they open their mouth and it falls inside. So if you want to just drip a little bit on their nose, let it fall off into their mouth. That's another way you can get stuff in there. That was not a direct method. This is more the direct method of getting their mouth to open. So most lizards do this. I've never had a lizard not do that, so this is a really good method. With bigger lizards like tegus, you will kind of have to pry their mouth open, but if you rub it against the side of their face, it does work. So this has been my special example patient. He is a special needs leopard gecko, so he's not going to get very much bigger than this. So his name's Spot. So yeah, thanks Spot for helping us today. So if you like this video and want to see more, check out the other videos on my channel. And if you have not yet, please like and subscribe for more future content. Thanks for joining me and Boops today as you learned about my first aid kit. If you're concerned about your pet, take it to a vet. But again, go see a vet if you're concerned. Obviously, go see a vet. That's #1 thing. If you see anything wrong with your turtle shell, go to a vet. And again, see your vet. If you are concerned or it looks bad, or if you just anything, just go see a vet. Emergency situations that you gotta run, take them to a vet. I'm gonna probably show you how to open a lizard's mouth in a second. So that'll be the next thing. Never mind, Julie. Another tip I have is when it gets cold out and you're worried about your house power leaving. Let's try that again. What are you doing, man? Why are you just hanging? Hanging boy. Alright. What is this snake doing? What are you doing, bud? What a cute boy.